So last episode, you said love don't cost a thing. With all that,
Yeah.
what do you what do you like to do that doesn't cost money? With me.
Oh, playing with the kids, I was about to say. It doesn't cost any money if we stay in the house. If we go out, then they want something. So
Somebody gets injured, that's going to cost.
No, we haven't had that. Yeah, so. What is it that we do that doesn't cost? Well, everything costs. Everything costs.
We go for walks.
Costs time.
It's a date. Whenever it's the two of us together.
And we'll get there, but I'm trying to think specific things that doesn't cost. Okay, so going out for a walk. Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that you can think of?
Just that.
Just that?
Because everything else costs. If we go for a drive.
It costs. So love, unless you go for a walk.
Yep.
Costs something.
Because sitting right here with you and that light, we got to pay for that light.
It costs everything.
It costs.
Well, welcome back to another episode of Me and My Pod. I am Christian. Oh, you weren't going to go for it.
He's Ricardo. I'm Christian, just like the religion.
All right, so... All right, I thought you were just letting it go.
I was going to let it go.
You were picking up, I'm Ricardo.
I thought about it, and then I thought maybe you're going to do an
record
edit.
Switch.
Okay.
This is all about the authenticity in life, and yes, there will be some edits, but ultimately it's as is, not polished, not scripted, although we did talk about what we want to bring to the table.
Well, you have to do that part.
Well, yeah.
You have to have some idea.
We're not just kind of going off and say, okay, this is boom, boom, boom. So a lot of these recordings, we don't take multiple takes. It's let it roll, and wherever we can find a break and edit, that's what happens. So as you can see today, for this episode, the scene has changed. We are chilling on the front porch of our home. Michaela, who's usually behind the camera, is actually at Life currently and having a great time. She keeps sending us pictures, so we're glad for her to be able to go.
Yes.
The last time she went was 2010.
Yeah.
When we went to Life as a kid. She was 2. And now she gets to go as a teen. So if you don't know Life is a youth conference that our denomination put together, Christian Missionary Alliance. And it's a fantastic time for the kids to experience and hear great speakers and hopefully have a great encounter with Christ. So what's on your mind? What's on the agenda today?
Continuing our talk, picking up from last week.
Yeah.
Okay. You talked about those 3 key parts that help to develop and to grow your marriage.
Yep.
You remember?
Yep. Of course I remember.
All right,
the
let's
question
hear
is,
it.
do you remember? And the answer is nope.
How'd you know my answer?
Because you said it last time. So, well, we said love is a choice, marriage is a decision, and parenting is a privilege and an obligation. And so we want to continue kind of building on that conversation. We talked about that love is a what?
Choice.
It's a choice, right? And really, and we didn't go into this as much, but we get to choose who we love. And even when emotions are involved, it is a choice, and it's continuing to make that choice. Then you step into marriage. It is a decision that you make, that you are in full aware that you say, I want to spend the rest of my life with this person. Now, no one ever go into a marriage thinking, let's give it a shot for 2 years. Let's give it a shot for 5 years.
Yeah.
You are typically coming in saying, I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Now, a lot can change in that, but ultimately it's that decision. And whether or not you stop making the decision along the way, that leads to all these other things, that's something else. But the third part was talking about parenting as a privilege as well as an obligation. And so finding that you are becoming a parent, you start to make choices, even with your own bodies, to create a healthy environment inward, but you also begin to create a healthy environment outward. Right, you make sure that the rooms are set up. You make sure that the cabinets are secure. You make sure all the things are in place.
Every outlet is covered.
Yep, and so it is part of that privilege because you get to be the parent, but the obligation is making sure that all those things are in place. And so, continuing that conversation, we've been saying we are not experts, right?
We are not.
So we are sharing our story. And we also understand that our dynamics are not the typical dynamics. We're not a mirror in which you're necessarily seeing your lives, but we hope that what we share are lessons and applications that can be used to the benefit of you who are listening to, whether it's the YouTube or the podcast aspect. And so we want to continue this conversation and build on that.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here? How do we make it work? One of the things that we do is that we don't separate life and ministry. And I think one of the examples that we kind of experienced not too long ago as we were at one of our denominational conferences was how you were serving and how I was involved in, kind of decision-making ministry, but you were serving. So let's talk about that from your perspective. How did it look as we were involved?
Okay, so this conference happens every 2 years, and his focus when he attends is on the conference. It's important for us that we travel together as a family. So we were at this conference, and we saw that there was a need. Now, again, he's at the conference to attend, and I have my children, and I thought, you know what? There's a need. And before getting to this conference, my prayer was, God, how can I serve during this time? Not knowing what the need was, walk in that morning, and it was, we are short staffed. This is why we can't get the amount of kids in that would love to come in. And I thought, I have all my clearances. Our older two, they could come and help and serve as teens. And then our younger three, they could attend as participants. So thinking through that, and it took me a moment to realize this is something that, one, they can see me leading and helping out and serving in action, not just me telling my teens, hey, you go and do it. You serve here. You help out. But the younger siblings, they get to look up to their older siblings in a way, hey, you're serving in this position. You get to help. You get to lead in this way. In the future, this is what I would like to do. And I love that idea that they can see how their older siblings are serving God in this way. That week of watching them, it was so wonderful, so amazing that we didn't plan for this, but God knew.
And I think, again, that continues the dynamic of our lives are not segregated. But for us as a family, it becomes so integrated in the aspects of who we are. And so the example that you just shared kind of really, even though we weren't in the same room doing the exact same thing, we were doing the dynamic of our family, doing ministry together, because here you are involved in children ministry. Michaela and Michael, our oldest two, are involved in helping along. At the same time, Mia, Miles, and Madison are the recipient of that ministry, while I'm upstairs in the boring meetings that are taking place.
You like those meetings.
I do
you
sometimes,
like
yes. But it's just a matter of that life and ministry doesn't have to be two separate things.
That's right.
Now, the challenge I think I was thinking about, we were discussing earlier, was how do we make that translatable to someone who is not in full-time ministry? Right? And you're looking at us thinking, okay, of course that's how they do it. Because even for you, as a believer or as a parent or as a wife, you're navigating all these different dynamics of, okay, how do I separate my work life and my parenting life, And for some, it's harder than others. For us, we get the privilege and we made the decision a long time ago that is going to be part of our dynamics.
Yes.
And for you, depending on where you are, I'm not saying just get up and go and do that. Start something small, right? So if it's Vacation Bible School that your kids are going into, why not volunteer and be there?
That's
right.
right.
So that gives you an opportunity.
Let's give some examples, because when you're volunteering, you don't have to be one of the leaders that's in your child's group. You can help with registration.
Yep.
You can help out in the kitchen, decorations. I'm actually doing that.
Yeah.
I started last year at my church on decoration only. And then again this year, decoration only. Because I also want to give our children their own space so they can feel, okay, this is my area.
Yep.
This is where I get to come and learn. And mom's not my teacher. So I think for me, that is something that's important to give them that ownership as well.
Yeah, and I think our kids not only need the space, they need the model, right? And they get to see us doing that. But they also get to be part of something so much bigger, whether it is in the serving capacity or involvement where, I remember, in one of our churches, actually the last two prior to this one, it was primarily us two doing some of the leading ministries where it was you leading the kids' activities or kids' program, the kids' curriculum. And there were times where it was just our kids in ministry, and we didn't stop it because we're like, we're not, no, they got to see you leading in ministry as well as being mom. Because again, we're going to come back to this theme where ministry and life doesn't have to be two separate things.
That's right.
Because life for us and for a believer is ministry, and ministry is life. It's not something that you do, then you check off and go on. So are there any other examples that you can think of that can be not just from a pastor's wife or pastoral couple? How do I model this? How do I live that? How do I get involved and combining life and ministry together?
I think this morning was a perfect example. So after I dropped you off, came back, I'm getting ready. Mia turns to me and says, "Do we need to be at church early so you can serve at the door as a greeter?" And I'm thinking, whoa, one, she's learning a schedule. Hey, there's a routine that has to happen when you're serving. And this is a position that anyone can do as a greeter. But for her to be so young to recognize that, I just thought, thank you, Lord. It's something that she sees that, hey, maybe in the future, she may become a greeter or have an interest to serve in a different area. So I think that's important for her to see it being modeled. And they want to know. So I do enjoy that part.
If I wasn't a pastor, I would still want to be involved in ministry, right? Because that's the responsibility of giving back to the Lord through his church. And so I would want to be involved because that's kind of where I've been, whether it's playing an instrument, being part of a worship team, choir, whatever that is. Every person has a gift, and those gifts are not for us to kind of put to the side and think only valued people or spiritual people can do that. Are you friendly enough to just want to make people walking in feel welcome?
That's right.
That's kind of the capacity. Or, do you have the capacity to help in a kids ministry? Ministry and life doesn't have to be so separated. This is something we found. I remember.
You found this one,
I
right?
found this.
Yeah.
So there are unspoken rules. There are not only in the kind of between us until again, you don't know them until they're violated. That's kind of. But one of the things that we apply, and in our family, is we value fun. Now, maybe you were thinking, well, we value spirituality. We do. We value our relationship with Christ above all else. But when I think of just being myself, being dad, being a husband, we value fun as part of our context. And so I found this little thing here. I don't remember where, and that has become some of the mantra. Now, again, it's not perfectly, it's not written by me. It's not anything that I'm like, hey, let's put these down and for us. And so let's see, which one was that really communicated for me?
I have my favorite on here.
Yeah, which one is your favorite?
Encourage one another.
Yeah.
That helps you to move forward, look forward into that person, given a better understanding, thinking before you speak. What is it about that person that I love or I enjoy, or when they're feeling down, what is it that I can do to speak life into them?
Yeah. And a lot of these are things that we remind them. And well, actually, what's even more interesting is that they would come and remind me or us on these. So when we joke around and I would tell a lie, shh, don't tell anybody.
Especially on Sundays.
Yeah.
They get him on Sundays.
They're like, well, Dad, it says, always be honest. And I'm called to that because I would call them to it as well.
Yes.
And so we created a family dynamic that allows them to have tangible, practical reality of what life in ministry looks like, so that we're not hypocrites to them, where we say one thing and we live differently, but they see us as authentic as we want to be seen. Mm-hmm. And so those are the dynamics of what ministry and life is for us in combination of. So we made the decision first to God, right? Because that's where the foundation of our relationship. We made the decision to each other, and we make the decision to our family, so that it is not separated. I will do my absolute best to not sacrifice family for the sake of ministry, right? And so because this is my priority, because this is the first calling that I have, I need to do a good job here because I can get all the accolades. I can preach, and I have preached thousands of sermons that may not mean anything unless our lives at home lines up with it. And so I think that's kind of the dynamic where, when we go from our choice decision of love, the decision of marriage, and the privilege and obligation to becoming a family, then we need to really look at how do we make sure that it is continuing in life and ministry and building up something that's solid that we can both not only be proud of, but we pass on as a legacy to our children, to see them, being involved. To again, we can have many examples of that, but I think ultimately we want to make sure that our lives are intertwined as one.
Yeah, and I like the way you shared that. I know for a lot of families that I hear some talk from, even my own, Sunday mornings can be hard. Especially after I drop you off. Not everyone agrees on what time they need to be in the car. So I have a set time, and you miss out on this.
That's okay.
Like every Sunday. So I have this thing with my kids. If you're not in the car by a certain time, we're parking on the other side of the parking lot. That helps me from getting to that moment of, all right, I know we're going to church, but I'm upset, and we just yelled at everybody because they were not in the car at the time they should be. So parking on the other side, then they begin to understand, oh man, I need to get up and be in the car on time. But they also get that exercise, get in those extra steps Sunday morning and kind of release whatever it is, the whole walk up. So, yeah.
I think it's just speaking to kind of the expectations.
Yes.
All right. That it's not just, all right, we need to be pastor's wife, pastor's family. And yes, there's from the outsider's view, yes, there's that. But I think ultimately, regardless of where you are in the spectrum of Christianity, and you're right, there are times where you're coming to church and you just had a fight in the car, you just had a fight in the house, you had a crazy week, and Sunday morning comes around and you have to put on your best face, your best smile, your best clothes, and show up as if nothing happened. The reality is that we are people. And we go through life's crises and issues. We have made the church into a club for the well versus a hospital for the sick, so that we expect people to be present and have it all together. But ultimately, I think we are to have enough space that as a family struggling, and maybe you don't have room on your plate to do ministry. Well, and I think part of that, if I may push back a bit, part of it is because you are separating them. Is to say, well, I don't have time for ministry because I have so much going on. That's my encouragement and challenge to say, what if it wasn't two separate things? What if it's all one? It's part of who you are. You model that, you share that, you bring your family into that. And so it's not just because we're pastoral couples. Yes, we are that, and we get the privilege and experience of doing that for many years. But ultimately, it's something that anyone can be and anyone can do if we just take the intentionality into it and say, this is who we want to be. So I want to challenge you to make a decision on, how do I merge the two? Yeah.
We, one of the examples that I wanted to share, I was taking our children to karate lesson, and it was at a church, and they also do a pancake breakfast. And I'm like, oh, those pancakes look great. That's coming out. Now it's for the community. And at the end of my kids' lesson, I thought, hey, what if we took a moment and we served? In my brain, in random places we go, I'm like, we could serve here. I don't know if there's any, restrictions or guidelines, but hey, I have clearances, so that gets you into places. So I ended up doing that, but my kids that were in that karate class, I'm like, come here, we're gonna serve, we're gonna do this together and see what happens. They loved it so much. They were going up to the cars, taking the orders for pancakes. I think it was Michael, he was able to make the pancakes. They let him in the kitchen to make the pancakes. And it was just like, I'm peeking over watching him. It was wonderful. So they ended up doing that 2 more times last summer. But, and I think what would it had been like if I just grabbed them from their lesson and we left. But I'm thankful for those moments that we had, one, connecting together, and we talked about, what did you think? Did you like this? Do you want to come back and do it again? So that wasn't even our church. Like, we don't go there besides for just the karate lessons. So that itself was great to see them in that role. And for me personally, to step up and want to serve somewhere else, with everything that goes on in my life. And it was just like, you know what? They enjoy it. I enjoy it. So why not? And I just love the fact that we didn't plan for that. Just serving in that way was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's finding ways to be, and if you have, especially if you have the time, maybe it's easier. But we live in such a busy, go kind of environment that oftentimes people are not thinking, okay, let's do this.
Right.
And so this is where, let me be a pastor for a moment. This is where the Great Commission fills the void, because the reality, we often misread that verse where it says, go into all the world and make disciples of all nations and all of that. But and if you've been in church for a while, you may have heard someone would say, it's not go into all the world, it's as you are going, right? It brings in my current reality into the mission of making disciples. And really, and I've heard this being done, whether it's in passing or joking, what we are doing at home, we are making disciples. We are raising our children as disciples. Now, that doesn't always feel like it's formative class sessions. What does this verse say? What does this passage say? What does it mean? What are the things that you need to know? It doesn't look like that for us.
Right.
But the way it looks is that as we are going, we are involving, we are bringing them in, we are inviting them into the aspect and the privilege of ministry as we get to do it. The calling that Christ has given and extended to me and to us is what we are living in. And you have that very same calling, even if it's not full-time ministry. It is an opportunity. It's an invitation that says, you've been made for something so much more. And so don't separate life, then think ministry is for everyone else. What if there was no divide? What is the falsity of life, then ministry didn't happen? What if that was who we are as a people? That's the challenge that we wanted to bring, but also continuing the conversation from where we ended up last week. I think next session, it's going to be probably one of my wife's favorite, because we'll get to talk about dating. All right?
Yep, that's my favorite.
So we'll get to talk about how we do dates, how do we do life as a couple, how do we keep life going after 5 kids, where, and at some point we'll talk about what are some challenging points that we've dealt with. But I am thrilled for our marriage. I'm thrilled for where we've been, where we are. I love how God has taken care of us when there were tough times or challenges. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for, and I'm looking forward to bring in that relational piece into how do we do it for ourselves. So if you want to hear more about that, we want to invite you to tune in for the next episode. But do us a huge favor, like, subscribe, share this episode with someone, a friend, post it. If you could go to our YouTube page and subscribe, we want to grow our channels in our community. And as we often do, we invite people to join the pod. And so I hope that this was helpful and encouraging. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, we'd love to hear it. Well, thanks again for joining us. I'm Ricardo.
I'm Christian.
And you are part of the pod. So thank you for watching and listening to me and my pod. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode.